I opened the DNA results alone in the sanctuary at 2 in the morning under the cross where I preach about truth every Sunday. The envelope was thick medical grade cardstock, the kind that feels official, permanent, inescapable. When I tore it open, the sound echoed off the walls like a gunshot. Inside, the paper was heavy, laser-printed results, fresh ink that had that chemical smell from the clinic's printer. The logo was embossed at the top. You could trace it with your fingertip, feel the raised edges, but it was the numbers I couldn't stop staring at. Probability of paternity, 0.00%, not 1%, not 2%, 0, absolute. Mathematical certainty that Grace, my daughter, my joy, the girl I'd raised for 17 years, wasn't mine. I looked up at the cross. Stage lights were still on from evening service. They cast long shadows across 2,000 empty seats. My hands were shaking. The paper trembled between my fingers. God, I whispered into the silence. Why didn't you warn me? The sanctuary gave no answer. Just the hum of the HVAC system, the creak of old wood settling, the sound of my own breathing, too fast, too shallow. I pulled out my phone, Googled false negative paternity test with fumbling thumbs, scrolled through results for 3 hours straight, sitting there on the stage floor, back against the pulpit. Every website said the same thing, 99.99% accurate, which meant Grace wasn't mine, which meant Rebecca. I grabbed the edge of the pulpit to pull myself up, walked to my office down the darkened hallway, unlocked the door, found my sermon journal on the desk, leather-bound moleskin, brown cover worn soft from 15 years of use. The leather smelled like old books, like history, like lies. I flipped back frantically. The pages whispered as I turned them. That soft sound expensive paper makes. Found the entry from June 15th, 2008. My handwriting in blue ink, younger version of myself, hopeful. God blessed us with Grace Elizabeth today. 7 pounds, 3 ounces, born at 6:47 a.m. I was first to hold her after Rebecca. Cut the umbilical cord myself. My hands shook. Couldn't believe something so perfect came from us. Grace's first cry was the most beautiful sound I've ever heard. Her eyes opened and looked right at me. I swear she has my eyes. I prayed over her in the delivery room. God, let me be the father she deserves. Let me show up. Let me choose her every day. I meant every word. I closed the journal. The ribbon bookmark fell across the page like a line drawn through my past. She didn't have my eyes. She never did. I'd just been too blind to see it. The coffee mug on my desk, cold from hours ago, I picked it up without thinking, took a sip, tasted like ash, like grief. My hand slipped, the mug hit the floor, shattered, brown liquid spreading across the hardwood in a dark stain. I didn't clean it up, just stood there. Watching coffee soak into the wood, thinking this is what truth does. Breaks things, stains them, changes them permanently. By the time I made it to the bathroom and threw up, the sun was starting to rise. 6 weeks earlier, everything had been normal, or what I thought was normal. We were celebrating Grace's 17th birthday at our house. Me, Rebecca, Grace, and my mother Sharon, 70 years old, still sharp as a tack, still making the drive up from her apartment to spoil her granddaughter. Grace was opening presents at the dinner table. She tore into Mom's gift, enthusiastic, like she was 8 years old again, not 17. Ancestry DNA kit. Grace held up the teal and white box. It rattled when she shook it, test tube with blue cap knocking against cardboard. Grandma, this is so cool. We can find out if we're secretly royalty or something. The box was glossy, that shiny finish that catches light. Professional, scientific, innocent. Mom laughed. Your grandfather always said we had Viking blood. Let's see if he was right. Grace was already reading the instructions. It says results take 6 to 8 weeks, so by August we'll know our heritage. Dad, you want to do one too? We could compare? I was cutting the birthday cake, red velvet, Grace's favorite. Maybe, sweetheart. Sounds fun. Mom, what about you? Grace turned to Rebecca. Rebecca's wine glass froze halfway to her lips, just for a second, a micro pause. Then she smiled. Sure, honey, why not? I didn't notice the pause at the time, didn't register the tension in her jaw, the way her knuckles went white around the stem of the glass. I was busy being dad, being Pastor Daniel, being oblivious. In 6 weeks, Grace said, registering the kit online on her phone, we'll know if I'm secretly royalty. She laughed. Mom laughed. I laughed. Rebecca set down her wine glass, carefully, like it might shatter. 6 weeks later, I was standing in that sanctuary at 2 a.m., holding results that said my daughter wasn't mine. And my wife, who'd smiled through that birthday dinner, who'd said, why not, with perfect composure, had known. She'd known. I drove home in the dark. Our house was in the nice part of town. 2-story, white siding, manicured lawn, pastor's house, perfect on the outside. Rebecca was asleep when I slipped into bed at 4 a.m, or pretending to be asleep. I couldn't tell anymore. Couldn't trust anything anymore. I lay there in the dark, listening to her breathe, wondering who she was, who she'd been for the past however many years, wondering if our entire marriage had been a lie. Sunday morning came too fast. I stood in the bathroom, shaving, the razor scraped against stubble. My face in the mirror looked like a stranger's. Hadn't slept, eyes were hollow. But I knew how to hide it. 15 years as a pastor teaches you how to perform, how to smile when you're dying inside. Rebecca was getting dressed in our bedroom, moving around, choosing the perfect pastor's wife outfit, navy dress, pearls, hair perfect. She'd been doing this for 18 years, playing the role. Had any of it been real? You okay? She called from the bedroom. You've been quiet. Just thinking about today's sermon, I called back, casual, normal. Big crowd expected. What's the topic again? Faithfulness. I rinsed the razor, watched pink-tinged water swirl down the drain. Honoring marriage vows, Ephesians 5:25. Silence from the bedroom. Then, that should be good. I closed my eyes, gripped the edge of the sink. Knuckles white. She has no idea I know. Riverside Community Church was packed for morning service. 2,000 people in the sanctuary, another 45,000 watching the live stream. 1,200 families who trusted me, believed in me, thought I had answers. I stood backstage before service started, watching through the curtain. The sanctuary was filling up, families sliding into pews, kids wriggling in Sunday clothes, teenagers checking phones, elderly couples holding hands. Grace was with the worship team on stage. She wore a cream-colored dress, her hair pulled back, mic check, sound levels. She was singing warm-ups, voice clear and strong. My daughter, my pride, not mine. The DNA says not mine. Rebecca was in the front row. Children's ministry director, that was her title. 33 kids under her care every Sunday. Loved by everyone, respected, trusted. I twisted my wedding ring, silver tungsten, inscribed inside detonates, Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. The ring felt tight suddenly, like it was cutting off circulation. I'd been twisting it unconsciously. Nervous habit I didn't know I had. When had that started? Caleb Murdoch stepped onto stage to start worship. My best friend. Worship pastor for 12 years. Seminary roommate before that. The brother I'd never had biologically. We'd built this church together, me and Caleb, partners in ministry. He carried the laminated set list, white cardstock, 5'7" inches, his handwriting in red marker. I could see it from backstage. He always kept them. Archived every Sunday's song choices. The plastic lamination made a slight crinkling sound when he bent it to clip onto his music stand. Service started. The band began. Opening song, Oceans, Rebecca's favorite. Second song, Great is Thy Faithfulness. Another one Rebecca loved. Third song, How Great Thou Art, Rebecca's top 3. I stood there backstage listening. When had this happened? When had Caleb stopped playing my favorites? I loved the old hymns. It Is Well With My Soul. Amazing Grace. Songs my grandfather sang, songs that reminded me where I came from, but we hadn't sung those in... how long? I couldn't remember the last time. Grace was singing lead vocals, her voice soaring over the congregation, beautiful, pure, anointed. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness. The irony was crushing. My turn to preach. I walked onto stage, 2,000 faces looking up at me, expecting wisdom, expecting God to speak through me. I opened my sermon notes, leather journal, the same one I'd read in my office at 2 a.m., pages filled with preparation, research, prayer. Today's message, honoring marriage vows. I almost laughed, almost broke down right there on stage, but I didn't. I preached, talked about covenant, about faithfulness, about choosing your spouse every day, even when it's hard. Rebecca sat in the front row, hands folded in her lap, nodding along. Picture-perfect pastor's wife. Grace sat on stage behind me, beaming with pride, her dad teaching truth. Caleb stood at the piano, playing gentle background chords, supporting my words with music, and I stood there in my suit and tie, wedding ring on my finger, preaching about faithfulness while my world was falling apart. Let he who is without sin cast the first stone, I said, quoting Jesus. It was part of my sermon series. Radical forgiveness. Grace for the broken. The congregation leaned in. Some were crying, touched by the message. I kept going, kept performing, kept pretending. After service, Grace hugged me in the hallway. Dad, that sermon on faithfulness was your best yet. I want to be as committed to truth as you are. I hugged her back, held her tight. My daughter, my Grace. My wedding ring felt like it was burning through my skin. If you've ever had to smile through the worst day of your life, pretend everything's fine when it's not, just type brave in the comments. Sometimes showing up is the hardest thing we do. You're not alone in that. Monday evening, church office, 9 p.m., building empty except for the night security guard doing rounds. I'd spend all day seeing people, counseling sessions, committee meetings, budget discussions, playing pastor, playing husband, playing father. Now alone, I could finally stop performing. I locked my office door, spread documents across my desk. Timeline reconstruction, detective work as coping mechanism, the sermon journal, Grace's baby book I'd brought from home, my calendar from 2007-2008, Rebecca's old planners I'd found in storage. I needed to know when this started. Grace was born June 15th, 2008. I pulled out my phone calculator, counted back 40 weeks. Conception would have been around September 2007. I flipped to my calendar from September 2007. Nothing unusual. Me and Rebecca were active around then. Regular married life, or so I'd thought. But wait, I opened the sermon journal again, found an entry from July 2017, not 2007, 10 years later. Camping retreat this weekend, annual staff getaway to hill country, 42 people total. Caleb approached me by the campfire last night, said he's been struggling with his marriage to Lily, feeling distant. I prayed with him, encouraged him to pursue faithfulness, to fight for his covenant. He thanked me, said I'm the brother he never had. July 2017, I pulled a photo off my office wall, the camping retreat picture, pinewood frame, 8 calico tin, slightly faded from 8 years of Texas sun. The entire staff gathered around a campfire, flames reflecting on faces, everyone smiling. I looked closer, really looked. In the background, Rebecca and Caleb sitting close together, very close. Her hand on his knee, both of them leaning toward each other, the flames casting their faces in orange light, intimate, conspiratorial. I'd walked past this photo every single day for 8 years, hung it in the hallway myself, been proud of it. Look how our church family loves each other, I'd told visitors, and the whole time, I grabbed my phone, pulled up the calculator again. If the affair started at that retreat in July 2017 and we're now in June 2025, that meant 8 years. 8 years. Not a mistake, not a one-time thing, not a moment of weakness. 8 years of Wednesdays. 8 years of worship set lists with Rebecca's favorites. 8 years of me praying with Caleb about faithfulness while he was sleeping with my wife. I opened my laptop, pulled up the church calendar system, searched for Wednesday evening events. Worship practice was every Wednesday, 7 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. I cross-referenced with staff sign-in logs, security badge data. Who was in the building when? Pattern after pattern after pattern. For 8 years, nearly every Wednesday, 2 badge swipes. Caleb Murdoch and Rebecca Whitmore, often the only 2 in the building after 9 p.m. Practice ran late. Just the 2 of them. Building security cameras only covered entrances, not interior rooms. For privacy, for trust, for perfect cover. I had to know when this started. Had to know how long I'd been the fool standing in the pulpit while my best friend. My stomach churned. I grabbed the trash can, dry, heaved into it. Nothing came up. Hadn't eaten all day. The phone on my desk rang. Nearly 10 p.m. I checked caller ID, Dr. Marlene Foster, church counselor. I answered. Hello? Daniel. Her voice was gentle, professional. I know it's late, but I need to tell you something. Rebecca asked me to schedule emergency counseling tomorrow. She says she wants you there. My grip tightened on the phone. Did she say what it's about? Pause. She said it's time to tell you the truth. Tuesday morning, 7 a.m., Elder Thomas Bridger's office. Bridger was 68, retired military chaplain, head of our church council. 12 elders total, but Bridger was the one everyone looked to. Moral authority. Institutional memory. He'd called the emergency meeting. His voice on the phone had been grave. I sat across from his desk. Mahogany, solid, heavy. Like the conversation we were about to have. Bridger slid a piece of paper across the desk. Plain white printer paper. Times New Roman font. Anonymous. I read it. Elder Bridger, Pastor Whitmore's wife, Rebecca, has been having an affair with worship pastor Caleb Murdoch for approximately 8 years. They meet during Wednesday evening practices when the building is mostly empty. I am tired of watching this church built on lies. Check the Wednesday night security logs. A concerned member. The words blurred, came back into focus. Blurred again. Is it true? 3 words. Bridger's military training made him direct. No dancing around. I could lie. Save the church. Save Grace's baptism in 6 weeks. Save everything I'd built. My mouth opened. I don't know yet, I heard myself say. But I'm finding out. Bridger leaned back in his chair. It creaked. Daniel, I've known you for 15 years. Since you started here, you're a good pastor, a good man. But if this is true... He paused, gestured to the church directory on his shelf. Spiral-bound booklet, glossy cover, annual publication. He pulled it down, flipped to page 34, the Whitmore family photo. Me, Rebecca, Grace, all smiling, professional, perfect. Turned the page, page 35, the Murdoch family, Caleb, Lily, no kids, both smiling. These families are pillars of this church, Bridger said. If this is true, Daniel, we're facing a crisis. 4,500 members, 200 staff, millions in annual budget, a building campaign vote in 8 weeks, and the senior pastor's wife having an affair with the worship pastor? He didn't need to finish. I understood. Scandal, exodus, division. The church could split, could die. Give me 48 hours, I said. I'll have answers. Bridger nodded. 48 hours, but Daniel, if it's true, we handle it transparently. Denominational oversight, ethics review, everything by the book. We don't cover this up. That's how churches die. Not from sin, from hiding sin. I stood to leave, turned at the door. Tom, I said, first name basis, man to man, not elder to pastor. Who do you think sent the letter? He met my eyes. Someone who's tired of lying, or someone who's been lied to. Tuesday afternoon, sound booth at church, 2 p.m., blinds closed so no one could see in. Marcus Chen sat at the mixing board, 26 years old. Our sound and tech director for 3 years, quiet kid, brilliant with equipment, introverted, loyal, and nervous, visibly, physically nervous. Pastor Daniel, he said, his hands were shaking. I need to show you something. I've been sitting on this for 8 months. I didn't know what to do. They're my bosses, but you're my pastor, and this isn't right. He handed me a black flash drive. SanDisk, 32 gigabytes, cheap plastic. The label was in his neat handwriting, Worship Practice Archives 2017-2019. I archive all our services and practices, Marcus explained, for quality control, training. It's part of my job. But when I was digitizing old recordings last fall, I found something. He plugged the drive into his computer, the click of connection, the whirring of the hard drive loading files. 47 files, all labeled systematically. Year, month, day, wed practice time, MP3. Marcus pulled up one, 2019's or 313 wed practice 2130 chars.mp3. This was a Wednesday night 3 years ago, he said. Building logs show only 4 people badged in that night, full band for practice. But by 9:30, everyone had left except Caleb and your wife. Recording equipment was still running. I didn't realize until I was reviewing it. He pressed play, static at first, then voices, clear as if they were standing next to me. Caleb's voice. When we're finally together, should we stay in Austin or start fresh? Rebecca's voice, laughing, intimate, fresh. New church, new life. Somewhere nobody knows Daniel or Lily. Caleb, you really think we can do it? Leave everything? Rebecca, I think about it every day. You, me, maybe Grace if she chooses. A real family. Caleb, I love you. You know that, right? Rebecca, I know. I love you too. Marcus stopped the playback. There are 47 recordings like this, 3 years worth, all from Wednesday nights marked practice when building logs show only 2 people present. I couldn't breathe. The sound booth felt small, airless. Why? My voice was hoarse. Why didn't you say something? Marcus looked down, young, anguished. I was scared. Their leadership, your leadership. Who was I supposed to tell? What if I was wrong? What if I misheard? What if I destroyed people's lives over a misunderstanding? But you're telling me now. Because of the letter to Elder Bridger, I heard about it. Someone else knows. Someone else is speaking up. And I can't keep quiet anymore. Not when you might need this. Not when... His voice broke. Not when it's the truth. I put my hand on his shoulder. He flinched, then relaxed. Marcus, I said, you did the right thing. Truth always comes out. Always. Even when it destroys everything. That night I couldn't sleep, lay in bed next to Rebecca. Her breathing was steady, peaceful. The sleep of someone with clear conscience. Or the sleep of someone who'd gotten very good at lying. I got up at midnight, went to our master bathroom, locked the door, started going through cabinets, looking for, I didn't know what, evidence, proof, something. In the cabinet under the sink, behind the extra toilet paper and cleaning supplies, a cardboard tampon box, generic brand, half empty. I picked it up. It rattled wrong, too heavy, opened it. Inside, a cell phone, cheap flip phone, silver Nokia, scratched plastic, not Rebecca's iPhone, not any phone I'd ever seen, a burner phone. My hands were shaking as I opened it. Cheap plastic smell. The hinge squeaked. Low quality beep when it powered on. Text messages. 847 text messages between 2 numbers. No names, just numbers. I scrolled through, stomach churning, world tilting. Miss you, baby. Can't wait for Wednesday. That blue dress you wore Sunday nearly killed me. I wanted to touch you so badly. Meeting room C tomorrow, 3 p.m. Daniel's traveling next week. Come over Tuesday night. I love you. I choose you. Always. Most recent message 4 hours ago, while I'd been in the office with Marcus listening to recordings. Meeting tomorrow with Daniel and counselor. We have to tell him I can't keep doing this. Reply from the other number. I'll be there. We'll do it together. I love you, V. V, Rebecca's middle name, was Victoria. V. I sat on the bathroom floor, cold tile against my back, phone in my hands, 847 messages, years of I love you, years of planning, years of Wednesday nights and stolen moments and when we're finally together. She'd been using prayer to justify this, using God, using me. And tomorrow, in just a few hours, she was going to tell me, in front of Dr. Foster, professional, clinical, controlled, on her terms, her timeline, her confession, not giving me the dignity of discovering it myself, not even that. I looked down at Rebecca's prayer journal. I'd brought it from my office. Fabric cover with pink roses, soft to the touch, gentle, feminine, innocent. I opened it. Lavender perfume wafted up from the pages. Her scent, the one I'd breathed in for 24 years. Purple ink cursive, beautiful handwriting, the kind she used for church bulletins. Entry from August 2017. Dear Lord, I know adultery is sin, but you brought Caleb into my life when Daniel abandoned me for the church. This love feels ordained. Please don't take it away. Bless us, cover us, let Daniel never know. Entry from March 2019. God, I'm pregnant. It might be C's. Please let it be Daniel's so no one has to know. Please cover this sin. You see everything, but you're merciful. I hadn't known she was pregnant in 2019. She'd never told me. Miscarriage at 8 weeks, according to the next entry. Thank you for taking this problem away before it became too real. Problem. She'd called a baby a problem. Entry from November 2024. Thank you, Lord, for giving me these years with C. Daniel will never know. Grace will never know. You see everything, but you understand. You know Daniel loves the church more than us. You gave me Caleb to fill that void. Thank you. I read that last line 3 times. God sees everything. She'd been using prayer to justify sleeping with my best friend for 8 years. She weaponized faith to excuse betrayal, asked God to bless her affair, to cover it, to hide it. I closed the journal. The fabric roses felt obscene under my fingers. This wasn't just adultery. This was blasphemy. Wednesday morning, 8 a.m., the church counseling room, soundproof. That's what we advertised to members. A safe space for difficult conversations. Cream-colored walls, soft lighting, 2 couches facing each other, a box of tissues on the side table, professional, pastoral, private. Dr. Marlene Foster sat in the mediator's chair, 51 years old, licensed therapist, church counselor for 9 years. She'd seen hundreds of marriages in crisis, helped dozens of couples rebuild. She didn't know she was about to witness the end of mine. Rebecca sat on one couch, navy dress, pearls, hair perfect, hands folded in her lap, composed, like she was about to lead a committee meeting, not confess to 8 years of adultery. I sat across from her. The space between us felt like a canyon. Dr. Foster opened her notebook. Rebecca called this meeting. Daniel, she said there's something she needs to tell you, something important. She looked at Rebecca. Whenever you're ready. Rebecca took a breath, rehearsed, prepared. Daniel, I need to tell you that I've been having an affair with Caleb Murdoch for 8 years. I finished. My voice was flat, clinical. I know. Rebecca's composure cracked. Face went white. How? I reached into my jacket, pulled out the white envelope. Quest Diagnostics, heavy paper. I slid it across the coffee table between us. Grace's DNA test results arrived last week. Probability of paternity, 0%. Rebecca stared at the envelope like it was a snake. You tested her? Her voice rising, defensive, angry. You tested our daughter behind my back? Our daughter? I leaned forward. Rebecca, the DNA says she's not mine. So whose daughter is she? Silence. Dr. Foster's pen had stopped moving. I pulled out the prayer journal, fabric cover with pink roses, opened it to the August 2017 entry. Dear Lord, I know adultery is sin, I read aloud, but you brought Caleb into my life when Daniel abandoned me for the church. This love feels ordained. Please bless us. I looked up at Rebecca. You asked God to bless your affair. You weaponized prayer, turned confession into permission. Rebecca's hands were shaking now. That's private. That's between me and God. Nothing is private anymore. I placed my wedding ring on the table between us. Silver tungsten. It made a heavy thud against the wood, final, like a gavel, like a door slamming shut. Jeremiah 29:11, I said, that's what's inscribed inside. For I know the plans I have for you. You made your own plans, Rebecca, for 8 years. Wednesday nights, meeting room C, somewhere nobody knows Daniel or Lily. Her face drained of color. How do you... Audio recordings. Marcus archives everything. 47 files. 3 years of you and Caleb planning your future together. Maybe Grace, if she chooses. You were going to make our daughter choose between her parents. Dr. Foster intervened. Let's take a breath here. No. Rebecca stood up, grabbed her purse, the perfect pastor's wife mask finally cracking. You were never home, Daniel. Always counseling other people's marriages, never ours. Always at the church, always with the congregation, always choosing them over me. I was lonely. So, you slept with my best friend. Don't you dare judge me, she was yelling now, all composure gone. Don't you stand there like you're perfect. Let he who is without sin cast the first stone. Remember, you preach that every month. There it was, my own sermon, my own theology, weaponized against me. I'm not casting stones, I said quietly. I'm asking, is Grace mine? Long pause, Rebecca's chest heaving, tears starting, but not remorse, anger. I don't know, she finally said. Maybe. Does it matter? Does it? I couldn't finish, couldn't breathe. How can you ask that? Truth. Fine. You want truth? Rebecca's voice was cold now, calculated. Caleb makes me feel alive. You make me feel like a pastor's wife, a role, a function, not a woman, not a person. There's your truth. Dr. Foster stood up. Rebecca, that's not helpful. Daniel deserves... What does Daniel deserve? Rebecca rounded on her. He deserves a wife who feels seen? Then maybe he should have looked at me sometime in the last 15 years. She grabbed her coat off the hook, turned to me, final blow. If you expose this, I'll tell Grace you're not her real father. In front of everyone, at her baptism in 6 weeks. I'll destroy her faith before you destroy mine. She left. The door clicked shut, soft sound, deceptively gentle. Dr. Foster looked at me. Her professional mask had slipped. She looked shaken. That, she said quietly, was a threat. Document everything, Daniel. Every conversation, every message. This isn't about marriage anymore. This is about protection. I picked up my wedding ring from the table. It was cold, heavy, still warm where it had rested against the wood. I put it in my pocket, couldn't put it back on, couldn't throw it away, just carried it. Dead weight. What do I do? I asked, not as a pastor, as a man. You tell the truth, Dr. Foster said, but carefully, strategically, because Rebecca just told you she'll use Grace as a weapon, and people who weaponize children are capable of anything. I didn't go home that night. Couldn't face Rebecca. Couldn't pretend. Drove to Mom's apartment instead, 30 minutes outside Austin, small one-bedroom. She'd refused to move when I offered to buy her a bigger place. I don't need much, she'd said, just enough. Sharon Whitmore, 70 years old, widow. My father had died when I was 19, alcoholic, liver gave out. Mom had raised me alone after that, worked 2 jobs, kept me in youth group, kept me praying. She was the reason I'd become a pastor. To save families like ours never was. Now my family was the one that needed saving. She opened the door in her bathrobe, took one look at my face, and pulled me inside. "Sit," she said. "I'll make coffee." I sat at her tiny kitchen table, same table from my childhood, scarred wood, memories soaked into the grain. Mom made coffee in silence. The smell filled the kitchen, familiar, safe. She set a mug in front of me, sat across from me, waited. I told her everything, the DNA test, the prayer journal, the recordings, Rebecca's threat, all of it. She listened, didn't interrupt, just listened. When I finished, she was silent for a long time, just held her coffee mug, steam rising between us. "What am I supposed to do, Mom?" My voice broke. "Grace is my daughter. DNA or not, she's mine. But if I tell her the truth, I destroy her faith. If I don't tell her, I'm lying, and I can't..." I choked. "I can't keep lying." Mom reached across the table, took my hand. Her skin was soft, wrinkled, strong. "Baby," she said, "you think you lost a daughter today? No, you lost a wife who didn't deserve you. Grace, she's been yours from the minute you chose to love her. But the DNA, biology, is just data, Daniel. Love is the truth. You were there when she was born. You walked the floors when she had colic. You taught her to ride a bike, to pray, to sing harmony. You showed up. Every single day for 17 years you showed up. That's what makes a father." Tears were streaming down my face now, no hiding them, no pastoral composure. "What if it's not enough?" I whispered. "Then it's not enough," Mom said. "But you still tell her, because hiding the truth is another betrayal. She deserves to know what she's standing on, lies or love. Let her choose." I broke down crying. Right there at Mom's kitchen table, the same table where she'd made me breakfast before school, where she'd helped with homework, where she'd told me Dad was dying. Mom got up, came around the table, held me while I sobbed. Didn't say anything, just held me. Outside, the sun was setting. Inside, something was dying. Something was being born. I didn't know which would survive. Thursday evening, 6 p.m., Whitmore home, just me and Grace. Rebecca was working late, or avoiding me, probably both. Grace set the table for dinner. Spaghetti, simple, domestic, normal, except nothing was normal anymore. She brought the pasta to the table, sat down across from me, started serving herself. "Dad, can I ask you something?" She twirled spaghetti on her fork, casual, innocent. "The DNA results came back weird." My stomach dropped. "Weird how?" I kept my voice steady. Pastoral training. Hide the panic. "Well, it says I'm 52% Ashkenazi Jewish. But you and Mom are both Irish English, right? Is Grandpa secretly Jewish?" She was joking, laughing. No idea she was standing on the edge of a cliff. Caleb was half Jewish, his mother's side. "Genetics are complicated," I said. "Sometimes there are surprises in family trees." "Yeah, but..." Grace pulled out her phone, showed me the results, percentages, ancestry maps. "It also shows some shared DNA matches with people I don't recognize. Cousins, supposedly, but their last names aren't family names." Murdoch, Caleb's family. She was finding Caleb's relatives and didn't know it. "Have you shown this to your mom?" I asked. "Not yet. She's been weird lately, stressed. Is everything okay with you guys?" There it was. The question I'd been dreading. "Why do you ask?" Grace set down her fork, looked at me directly. 17 years old, almost an adult, perceptive. "She came home crying Tuesday night. And Caleb's been acting strange at practice, keeps staring at you during worship. And Jessie said she overheard you on the phone about a paternity something, but she said it was probably about counseling someone else." Jessie Park, 19, youth ministry intern. She'd overheard my call to the lab. Of course she had. In a church, there are no secrets, just delayed revelations. "It was about counseling, right?" Grace pressed. "Dad, you're scaring me. What's going on?" I couldn't lie. Not directly, not to her face. "Grace," I chose my words carefully. "Some things are happening, adult things. I need you to trust me, okay? I will tell you everything, but not yet. Not until I understand all of it. Is someone sick? Are you and Mom getting divorced? Her voice was small, young, scared. Just tell me, Dad. I know you can handle the truth, I said. You're stronger than you know, but I need to handle this the right way. Will you trust me for a few more days? She studied my face, reading me, trying to find answers I wasn't giving. Okay, she said slowly, but Dad, whatever it is, we're family. Nothing changes that, right? My throat closed. I reached across the table, took her hand. Nothing changes that, I said. After she went to bed, I sat in the dark living room. Couldn't turn on the lights, couldn't face brightness. I'd just lied to my daughter. Well, not lied, omitted, which felt worse. In 3 weeks, she was supposed to stand in front of 2,000 people and give her baptism testimony, share her faith journey, talk about how God had worked in her life through her family, through me, her father, the man who taught her about truth. Would she still have faith when she knew the truth? If you're a parent who's ever had to protect your child from a truth they weren't ready for, carry weight alone, because love sometimes means not sharing the burden. Type protect in the comments. Sometimes the loneliest part of parenting is knowing when to speak and when to carry silence. Friday night, 10 p.m. The sanctuary, empty. Dark except for stage lights. I'd texted Caleb, need to talk. Sanctuary, 10 p.m., come alone. He'd replied, I'll be there. I was standing on stage when he arrived, where I preached every Sunday, where he led worship, our space, our ministry, our brotherhood, all of it a lie. Caleb walked down the center aisle, slow steps. He looked tired, older than 44. Guilt ages you. He climbed the steps to the stage, stood 10 feet away, hands in pockets, defensive posture. So you know, he said, not a question, a statement. I know. How long? Does it matter? I pulled out the laminated set lists, 8 years worth, white cardstock, plastic coating crinkling as I spread them across the stage floor. You played her favorite songs every single Sunday for 8 years. You serenaded my wife from my pulpit. Caleb looked at the set lists, didn't deny it. I pulled out my phone, plugged it into the sound system, the church sound system he'd designed, that Marcus maintained, played the recording from March 2019. His voice filled the sanctuary. Rebecca's voice, intimate, planning. Maybe Grace if she chooses. I stopped it. The silence was deafening. 3 years of planning, I said. 47 recordings, Wednesday nights, building logs showed just you and her, over and over and over. Daniel, tell me why. My voice was quiet, deadly calm. 24 years, Caleb. We were roommates at seminary. I was best man at your wedding. You stood beside me when Grace was born. You held her when she was 2 weeks old and said she was blessed. You prayed over my family. I held up my wedding ring, the one I'd carried in my pocket since Wednesday. 24 years of brotherhood, and you took my wife. I didn't take her. Caleb's voice rose, defensive, angry. She chose me because I saw her, actually saw her. You treated her like church staff, like a function. The pastor's wife. Not a woman, not Rebecca, just a role to fill. So you comforted her. How noble. I love her, he was shouting now, more than you ever did. You love this church, not her. You love standing up here preaching, not being a husband. She was drowning, Daniel, and I was the only one who noticed. Because you were looking for an opportunity. No, because you weren't looking at all. The accusation hung in the air. Part of me knew it was true. I had prioritized the church, had let counseling sessions run late, had missed dinners, had been present but absent, but that didn't justify this. You're right, I said. I failed as a husband. I chose ministry over marriage. I was wrong. Caleb blinked, surprised. He'd been expecting a fight, not agreement. But Caleb, I continued, my failure doesn't excuse your betrayal. You didn't love her. You wanted her. There's a difference. And you didn't just want my wife. You were willing to destroy my daughter to get her. I gestured to the stage. This pulpit, this sanctuary, we built this together. Brothers in ministry, you said, and the whole time you were planning to take my family and leave. Start fresh. Somewhere nobody knows Daniel. That recording is taken out of context. 8 years is context. My voice echoed off the walls. 2,000 empty seats bearing witness. 47, Wednesdays is context. Standing next to me while I prayed for your marriage is context. Playing worship music while you were sleeping with my wife is context. Caleb's face crumpled. What do you want from me? The truth. Is Grace mine? I don't know. Do you think she's yours? Pause. Long. Heavy. I don't know, he repeated. Rebecca and I, she was still with you too. I don't know. So my daughter, the girl I raised, who looks up to you like an uncle, might be your child. And you don't know. And you don't care. That's not fair. Fair? I stepped closer. Tell me what's fair, Caleb. Tell me what's fair about 8 years of lies, about using my church building for your affair, about making worship about your secret love language to my wife. What's fair? What do you want from me? He repeated, broken now. Defensive anger collapsed into something smaller, ashamed. I want you to resign, leave Riverside. Don't make me force you out in front of the congregation. Fine. His voice was hollow. Fine, I'll resign. But Daniel, I'm not sorry I loved her, and I'm not sorry Grace might be mine, because if she is, at least she came from love, real love, not duty. Something snapped. Get out of my church. My voice was quiet, but it carried, final, absolute. Caleb looked at me, opened his mouth, closed it, turned, walked down the center aisle. The same aisle where we'd prayed together 1,000 times, where Grace would walk to her baptism in 3 weeks, where Rebecca had walked on our wedding day. His footsteps echoed, each one a nail in the coffin of our friendship. He pushed through the back doors. They swung closed with a thump, heavy, final. I stood alone on stage, under the lights. In the sanctuary I'd built with a man I never really knew. The cross hung above me. Silent. Judging or forgiving, I couldn't tell anymore. Saturday afternoon, I met with Elder Bridger again, gave him everything. Audio recordings, text messages, prayer journal entries, timeline documentation. He listened, took notes. His military training showed, clinical assessment, no emotional reaction. When I finished, he sat back, exhaled slowly. This is bigger than marriage counseling, he said. This is institutional misconduct, staff using church property for an affair, worship leader and children's ministry director, 8 years of deception. Daniel, the council needs to act. I know. Caleb needs to resign immediately, Rebecca too. Then we bring in denominational oversight, ethics review, everything by the book. They'll both resign, I said. I've already talked to Caleb. Rebecca will follow when she realizes I have evidence. And Grace? Bridger asked gently. When are you telling her? I don't know. Before her baptism. She can't stand up there and testify to a lie. That gives you 3 weeks. I know. Bridger leaned forward. Daniel, you're also going to need to address the congregation. Full transparency. This will leak. It's already leaking. That anonymous letter came from someone, probably Lily Murdoch, which means she'll talk. People will talk. You need to control the narrative. You mean confess from the pulpit? I mean lead with truth, the way you've always led this church. I nodded, couldn't speak. My throat was too tight. One more thing, Bridger said. The building campaign vote is in 8 weeks, $4.2 million for expansion. Pledges are already coming in. This scandal could kill it, could kill the church's momentum. Some families will leave, maybe a lot. So what are you saying? Cover it up to save the building fund? No. Bridger's voice was firm, military steel. I'm saying the consequences are real, not just for you, for everyone. 4,500 members, 200 staff, families whose kids are in Rebecca's ministry, musicians who play under Caleb. This ripples. So we lie to protect them? No, we tell the truth and trust God with the fallout. He smiled, sad but certain. That's what you've taught us, Daniel, for 15 years. Now we get to live it. Sunday morning, the impossible sermon. I woke up at 4 a.m., couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, just paced our bedroom while Rebecca pretended to sleep. We hadn't spoken since Wednesday's counseling session, living in the same house, separate bedrooms, Cold War. I got dressed, suit and tie, the uniform, the costume, left the house without speaking to her, arrived at church at 6 a.m. The building was empty, quiet, just me and the janitor finishing overnight cleaning. I went to my office, sat at my desk, opened my sermon journal. Today's message, honoring marriage vows, Ephesians 5:25. The irony was crushing, suffocating, but I couldn't change the sermon series. We'd advertised it for weeks. People were expecting it, and maybe God had a sick sense of humor, or maybe he was teaching me something about integrity. Preach what you know is true even when you're failing to live it. I reviewed my notes, handwritten, prepared weeks ago before I knew, before the DNA test, before everything shattered. My hands shook holding the journal. By 9:30, the sanctuary was filling. 2,000 seats, families, singles, teenagers, elderly couples. Worship team took the stage. Grace was there, cream dress, mic check, voice warm-ups. Rebecca was in the front row. Children's ministry volunteers around her, 33 kids under her care, all those families trusting her. Caleb walked onto stage. Worship pastor, for now. He'd submit resignation tomorrow, but today he was leading. He had the set list, laminated card, his handwriting. First song, Oceans. Second song, Great is Thy Faithfulness. Third song, How Great Thou Art. All Rebecca's favorites. One last time, message or goodbye, I couldn't tell. Grace sang lead vocals. Her voice was pure, anointed, powerful. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. The congregation sang along, hands raised, eyes closed, worshiping. And I sat backstage watching through the curtain, knowing that in 48 hours, half these people would know. In 3 weeks, everyone would know. The church I'd built was about to split. Not maybe, definitely, but truth costs everything. Mom said that. Dr. Foster said that. Bridger said that. I was about to pay. My turn to preach. I walked onto stage. The stage lights were bright, hot, blinding. 2,000 faces looked up at me, expecting wisdom, expecting God. I saw Grace in the second row now, having moved from stage after worship, smiling, proud, my daughter. I saw Rebecca, front row, hands folded, expressionless, the woman I'd loved for 24 years, stranger now. I saw Elder Bridger, back row, watching, waiting, knowing. I opened my sermon journal, pages filled with notes about faithfulness, about covenant, about choosing your spouse when it's hard. I couldn't do this, but I had to. Today, I started, my voice steady through sheer force of will. I'm supposed to preach about faithfulness in marriage, about covenant, about trust. Pause, let it land. But I can't stand here and talk about perfect marriages, because they don't exist. Every marriage is between two sinners trying to love each other despite their brokenness. Grace was leaning forward, intent, taking notes probably. My little scholar. Rebecca's eyes were on the floor. The Bible says, "Let he who is without sin cast the first stone." We quote that verse when we want mercy, but we forget what Jesus said next. Go and sin no more. Mercy isn't permission, it's transformation. Bridger nodded slightly, approval. What happens when the person you trust most, your partner, your friend, the one who stands beside you, what happens when they betray that trust? The sanctuary was silent. You could hear breathing, the HVAC hum, nothing else. Do you forgive? The Bible says yes, but does forgiveness mean pretending it didn't happen? The Bible says no. Grace's expression was shifting, confusion, concern. She was sensing something. Truth and grace, I continued. We need both. Truth without grace is cruelty. A grace without truth is enabling. Real love, the love Christ showed, is honest, even when honesty costs everything. My voice cracked slightly on costs everything. Rebecca looked up at me. Her face was pale. She knew. She knew I was talking about us. I'm going to be honest with you all, I said. The words felt like jumping off a cliff. Not now. Not from this pulpit with details you don't need. But soon. There are conversations I need to have first. Private conversations that should never have become public necessities. The congregation was holding its breath. 2,000 people. 45,000 online. All frozen. But I promise you this, I will not lie to you, not from this stage, not ever, even if the truth breaks us, even if the truth costs me everything, because a church built on lies isn't a church. It's a performance. I closed my sermon notes, couldn't read them anymore, just spoke from the heart. Some of you will be angry when you know. Some of you will leave. Some of you will choose sides. That's okay. That's human, but please, my voice broke. Please don't let anyone's failure, including mine, destroy your faith. God is still God, even when his servants fail. Grace is still grace, even when we need it desperately. I stepped back from the pulpit. The sermon was over. 15 minutes instead of 40. The sanctuary was silent. Then Elder Bridger stood, walked down the aisle, climbed the stage, stood next to me. Daniel hasn't broken our trust, he said to the congregation, his military voice carrying authority. He's honored it by promising to tell us the truth, even the hard truth. That's leadership. That's integrity. Other elders stood, walked forward, surrounded me on stage, not as judges, as brothers. The congregation began to sing, without prompting, without Caleb leading. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound. Grace joined in, her voice strong through tears. She was crying and didn't know why. I once was lost, but now am found. We were all lost, every single one of us, pretending we weren't. Maybe that was the point. Maybe being found only happens after you stop pretending. The song swelled, 2,000 voices, broken, honest, real. I stood there on stage, surrounded by elders, listening to my daughter sing about grace while my marriage died and my church fractured, and somehow, impossibly, it felt like the most honest moment I'd had in years. Daniel just told 2,000 people that truth is coming. No turning back now. But here's the question I want you to answer. If you were Daniel, would you tell Grace immediately, even though it'll destroy her before her baptism type truth? Or wait until after the baptism, let her have one last innocent moment, type wait? There's no perfect answer here. What would you do? I see some of you saying truth, some saying wait. You're both right. That's the impossible part. Every choice has a cost. Daniel chose truth. But your choice? That's yours. Let's see what happened next. Monday morning. Rebecca was gone. I came home Sunday night after that impossible sermon to find her closet empty. Drawers cleared out. Bathroom toiletries gone. Just a note on the kitchen counter. Her handwriting. Neat. Controlled. Daniel, I'm staying at a hotel. I'll resign from children's ministry effective immediately. My lawyer will contact you about separation. Don't tell Grace until I'm ready to talk to her too. R. Don't tell Grace. Still trying to control the narrative. Still trying to manage the damage on her timeline. No. I crumpled the note. Threw it in the trash. Grace had a right to know. And I wasn't waiting anymore. Monday evening, 6 p.m., just me and Grace in our living room. I'd asked her to come home right after school. No youth group tonight, no worship practice, just us. She sat on the couch, confused, worried. Dad, you're freaking me out. Where's Mom? Your mom is staying somewhere else right now, I said. We're separating, probably divorcing. Grace's face went white. What? Why? What happened? I sat down across from her, coffee table between us. On that table, I'd placed several items. The teal and white DNA kit box. Empty now, where this all started. The white envelope from Quest Diagnostics. Heavy paper, results inside. Rebecca's prayer journal, pink roses, lavender-scented lies. The black USB drive, 47 recorded betrayals. Grace looked at the objects, then at me. Dad, what is this? Grace, my voice was steady. I'd practiced this, rehearsed. But now that the moment was here, all my words felt inadequate. The DNA test you took, the results came back unusual, so I ran a paternity test. I slid the envelope across the table. She picked it up, hands shaking, opened it, read. Probability of paternity, 0%. She read it again, then looked up at me, eyes wide, uncomprehending. What does this mean? It means I'm not your biological father. The words hung in the air, sharp, cutting, irreversible. Grace stared at the paper, at me, at the paper again. But how? Mom wouldn't... Your mom had an affair, I said, gentle but direct, with Caleb. It started about 8 years ago, maybe earlier. I found out last week. Caleb? Her voice was small, disbelieving. Uncle Caleb, no, that can't be right. I picked up the prayer journal, opened to the August 2017 entry. Your mom wrote this. You can read it if you want, or I can tell you what it says. Grace reached for the journal with trembling hands. Read silently. Her face changed. Shock, disgust, horror. She asked God to bless her affair? Grace's voice was rising. She prayed about it, like it was okay? I know. For 8 years? Dad, for 8 years I know, sweetheart. Grace stood up, paced, couldn't sit still. Energy had to go somewhere. So Caleb is he's my biological... We don't know for certain, I said. The timing suggests it's possible, but your mom was still with me too. There's no way to be sure without testing Caleb. And honestly, I don't care about the biology. Grace spun around. How can you not care? He might be my father. He's not your father, Grace. I am. But the DNA says I didn't contribute genetic material. It doesn't say I'm not your father. I was there when you were born. I cut the umbilical cord. I walked the floors with you when you had colic. I taught you to ride a bike. I've been to every single one of your school plays, every volleyball game, every youth retreat. I chose you every single day for 17 years. That's what makes me your father. Grace was crying now, full sobs. But everything was a lie. Our whole family. Everything I believed about us. I stood up, crossed to her. She collapsed against me. Not everything, I said into her hair. My love for you, that wasn't a lie. That's the realest thing in my life. We stood there, father and daughter, chosen family, crying together. After a long time, Grace pulled back, wiped her eyes, looked at me. What about my baptism? In 3 weeks? I'm supposed to testify about my faith journey, about how God worked through our family. How am I supposed to do that now? You don't have to, I said. We can postpone. You can wait until you're ready, until it feels true. Does this change everything? She asked. My calling to youth ministry, my whole identity? I wanted to be like you, Dad, a pastor, someone who helps families. But if my family was built on lies... Your calling doesn't come from me, I said. It comes from God. And your identity isn't about genetics. It's about who you choose to be. You get to decide, Grace, not me, not your mom, not Caleb, you. She was silent for a long moment. Then she walked to the bookshelf, pulled down her baby book, white leather, slightly worn, opened to the first page. Grace Elizabeth Whitmore, born June 15th, 2008, first held by Daddy. Dad's first words to me, I prayed for you. She looked up at me. Did you mean it? Every word. She closed the book. Then you're my dad. Biology doesn't matter. You chose me. That's what matters. We held each other again, and in that moment, something broken started to heal. Not completely, not easily, but it started. After Grace went to bed, exhausted from crying, from processing, I sat alone in the dark living room. My phone rang. Dr. Foster. Daniel, I just got a call from Rebecca. She's in the hospital. She had a miscarriage, 14 weeks pregnant. She didn't know until... My stomach dropped. 14 weeks? She said the stress of everything, the exposure, the confrontation. She started bleeding this afternoon. I'm with her now. She asked me to tell you. 14 weeks. That meant she'd been pregnant this whole time. During the camping retreat discussion, during the counseling session, during everything, Caleb's baby had to be. We hadn't been intimate in months. Is she okay? I asked. Physically, yes. Emotionally, she's devastated, Daniel. I know you're angry. I know you have every right to be, but she's lost a child, even if the circumstances were complicated. Tell her, I paused. What did I tell her? Tell her I'm sorry for her loss, truly. Because I was. Whatever Rebecca had done, losing a child was grief, real grief, and I wouldn't weaponize that. I will, Dr. Foster said softly. And Daniel, you're a good man, better than you think. Wednesday evening service, smaller attendance, 800 people instead of 2,000. Word had spread, rumors, whispers. Some families had already left. Elder Bridger had announced an emergency congregational meeting. Pastor Daniel has something to share with the church family. I stood backstage. No sermon notes this time, no preparation, just truth. Grace was in the side section. She'd insisted on coming. I need to see this, Dad. I need to see you choose truth. The worship team played without Caleb. He'd submitted his resignation Monday morning, one sentence. Effective immediately, I resign as worship pastor. I'm sorry. Coward's exit. Clean. Distant. Rebecca had emailed her resignation to HR. Children's ministry director position vacant. Families asking questions. Kids confused about why Miss Rebecca wasn't there anymore. The elders sat in the front row. 12 men and women, stone-faced. Supportive, but serious. My turn. I walked onto stage. 800 faces, not 2,000. The church was already fracturing, already bleeding members. This would make it worse. But truth was worth it. I need to tell you the truth, I started. No preamble, no warm-up. Some of you have heard rumors. All of them are probably true. My wife, Rebecca, had an affair with Caleb Murdoch for approximately 8 years. It happened in this building on Wednesday nights during worship practice while I was counseling your families, teaching Bible studies, writing sermons about faithfulness. Gasps, murmurs, shock rippling through the sanctuary. I found out 2 weeks ago through a DNA test, my daughter Grace, whom I love more than my own life, may not be biologically mine. I don't know for certain. What I know is this. I failed to see what was happening in my own home while I tried to save yours. Grace was crying quietly in the side section. Several people turned to look at her, sympathetic, heartbroken for her. Rebecca and Caleb have resigned from their positions. They will not be returning to Riverside. The elders are working with our denominational oversight on ethics review. Both Rebecca and I have filed for divorce. I paused, let it sink in. As for me, I'm stepping down as senior pastor effective immediately. More gasps. Elder Bridger stood up. Daniel. I held up my hand. I'll stay on as teaching pastor if the congregation votes to keep me, but I can't lead from a position I can no longer fill with integrity. I've failed as a husband. I was so focused on growing this church that I neglected my marriage. That's on me. Not all of this is on me. Betrayal is a choice. But my neglect created space for betrayal to grow. Someone in the back stood. Pastor Daniel, you didn't betray us. No, I said, but I'm asking you to hold me accountable anyway. Not for Rebecca's choices, for mine, for the times I chose ministry over family, for the times I preached truth I wasn't living. Elder Bridger walked onto stage, stood beside me. "Daniel hasn't broken our trust," he said to the congregation. "He's honored it by telling us we're all sinners, all broken. The only difference is Daniel is honest about it." I picked up my wedding ring from my pocket. The tungsten band I'd carried since last Wednesday held it up. I wore this for 24 years. It meant something. It still means something, but not what I thought. Not covenant, not faithfulness, just a reminder that promises can be broken, that people can change, that nothing is guaranteed except God's grace. I said it on the pulpit. "Let he who is without sin cast the first stone." I've preached that verse for years. Tonight I'm standing here broken, asking, is grace big enough for this? For me? For Rebecca and Caleb, wherever they are? For all of us who failed and hurt people and need mercy? My voice cracked. I don't know what happens next. I know the building campaign might fail. I know some of you will leave. I know we'll be smaller, poorer, more broken. But maybe that's okay. Maybe that's when we're most real. When we stop pretending we're perfect and start admitting we're desperate for grace. I looked directly at Grace. One more thing. My daughter Grace was supposed to give her baptism testimony in 2 weeks. She's postponing it, not because she's lost faith, but because she's finding a real one. Not inherited from me, not assumed because her family looked good on the outside. Chosen, earned, authentic. That's the only faith worth having. The congregation was silent. Some were crying. Some looked angry. Some looked relieved. Then, without any cue, someone in the middle section started singing. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound. Others joined. Then more. Then the whole congregation. 800 voices, broken, honest, real. I once was lost, but now am found, was blind, but now I see. The elders stood and surrounded me on stage, not as judges, as brothers and sisters, as fellow strugglers. Grace joined from the side section, walked onto stage, stood next to me, took my hand. Her voice rose strong and clear through tears, leading, not because she had to, because she chose to. Through many dangers, toils, and snares I have already come. 'Tis grace has brought me safe thus far, and grace will lead me home. We were all lost, every single one of us, pretending we weren't. But maybe, just maybe, being lost was the first step to being found. 1 year later, Sunday morning, June 2026, Grace's 19th birthday. Riverside Community Church looked different now, smaller. We'd stabilized at about 800 regular attendees. Some families had left, angry at the scandal, unwilling to stay. Others had stayed, drawn by the honesty, by a church that admitted brokenness instead of performing perfection. The building campaign had been delayed. We'd lost about 40% of pledges, but we'd kept going. Leaner, humbler, real. I was still teaching pastor. The congregation had voted 73% to keep me in that role. Elder Bridger had stepped in as interim senior pastor. We'd eventually hire someone. But for now, it worked. Grace had taken a gap year. Therapy, healing, processing. She'd deferred college, worked at a coffee shop, volunteered at the church's pregnancy resource center, helping women in crisis pregnancies, finding purpose in pain. And now, today, she was ready. Baptism Sunday. The new church directory sat in the lobby, smaller, 40 pages instead of 100, but honest. The Whitmore family page showed just 2 people, me and Grace. Caption, chosen family. Grace stood in the baptismal pool, water to her waist. I stood beside her, my hand on her shoulder. 800 people in the sanctuary, not 2,000, but they were real. They'd stayed through scandal, through pain, through truth. Grace wore white, traditional baptism dress. Her hair was pulled back, face radiant, nervous but certain. I was supposed to do this a year ago, she started, her voice clear, strong. I didn't, because my faith was borrowed. I believed because my dad believed, because my church believed, because it was easy to believe when everything looked perfect. She paused, looked out at the congregation. Then I found out my family wasn't what I thought. My mom had an affair. The man I called Dad might not be my biological father, and I had to decide, do I still believe? Is God real when pastors' families implode, when prayers go unanswered, when church people are hypocrites? Some people in the congregation nodded. They understood. They'd asked the same questions. Here's what I learned, Grace continued. My dad taught me that truth costs everything, but lies cost your soul. He chose truth. He chose me. And in that choice, I saw God, not in perfection, in honesty, not in a family that looked good, in a father who showed up every day for 19 years, even when biology said he didn't have to. She turned to look at me. Biology doesn't make a family. Showing up does. Choosing each other does. My dad chose me. Every day. That's faith. That's love. That's what baptism means. Dying to the lie, rising to truth. I felt my throat tighten, tears starting. Grace Elizabeth Whitmore, I said, voice thick with emotion. I baptize you, my daughter, my joy, my chosen family, in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. I guided her back. She went under the water, emerged, water streaming down her face. Sunlight through the stained glass windows caught the droplets, made them sparkle like diamonds. She gasped, smiled. I'm free. The congregation erupted in applause, not polite church clapping, real celebration, joy, relief. Grace hugged me in the baptismal pool, wet clothes, dripping hair, pure happiness. Thank you, she whispered, for not giving up on truth, or me. Never, I said, not ever. We stepped out of the pool together. Someone handed us towels. Grace's smile was radiant. She reached into her pocket, somehow still dry in a waterproof pouch, and pulled out a pendant. Gold, simple, beautiful. You had your wedding ring melted down, she said, and made this for me. The pendant caught the light. Engraved on the back, you are loved. You are chosen. You are mine. Dad. I wanted you to have something from that broken covenant, I said, to remember that broken things can be transformed, that endings can become beginnings. Grace put it on. The gold caught the light against her white baptism dress. It's perfect, she said. After the service, I stood in the church lobby, greeting people, shaking hands, normal pastoral things. Mom approached, Sharon Whitmore, 71 now, still driving herself to church, still making communion bread every week. Proud of you, baby, she said, hug me tight. You chose truth. You chose grace. You chose right. I almost didn't, I admitted. I almost tried to hide it, keep the peace. But you didn't, and that's what matters. Grace joined us, still in her wet baptism clothes, glowing. Grandma, did you see? I saw, sweetheart, and I'm proud of you too, taking your time, doing it when it was real. That's wisdom. Someone had asked me recently if I'd forgiven Rebecca and Caleb. I'd said, I'm working on it. They'd asked if I still believed in marriage. I'd said, I believe in covenant, not contracts, but choices. When one person breaks covenant, the other is freed. But Grace and I, we chose a new covenant, father and daughter, not by blood, by love, by showing up. That's stronger than biology. Let he who is without sin cast the first stone. I wasn't throwing stones anymore. I was building altars, smaller ones, honest ones, where broken people could bring their truth and find grace. Not cheap grace that excused sin, real grace that transformed it. The church was smaller now, 800 people instead of 2,000. We'd lost the big building campaign. We'd lost the perfect image. We'd lost the performance, but we'd gained something too. Authenticity, community, people who stayed not because we looked good, but because we were honest about being broken. God sees everything, Grace said suddenly, looking up at the sanctuary windows, colored light streaming through. That phrase used to scare me. Mom used it to control us, to make us behave, but now it comforts me because he saw us surviving. He saw us choosing each other. He saw the truth and didn't look away. Neither did you, I said. You could have walked away from faith, from church, from me, but you stayed. Because you showed me that faith isn't about perfection, Grace said. It's about getting back up when you fall. It's about telling the truth even when it costs everything. You taught me that, Dad, not by preaching it, by living it. We stood there, father and daughter, in the lobby of a church that was smaller but healthier, broken but healing, imperfect but real. A young couple approached, late 20s, holding hands. Pastor Daniel, we're new here. First Sunday. We came because we heard your story about the truth, about rebuilding after betrayal. We're going through something similar, infidelity in our families. We wanted to find a church that understood, that didn't pretend everything was perfect. I shook their hands. Welcome to Riverside. We're broken here, but we're honest about it. And we're learning that maybe that's the only place grace really grows. They nodded, grateful, relieved to be in a space where masks weren't required. After they walked away, Grace looked at me. You're doing it, Dad. Building a church on truth. Not performance. It's smaller, but it's better. We're doing it, I corrected. This is our story, our church, our chosen family. We walked back into the sanctuary. The afternoon sun was streaming through stained glass, purple, gold, crimson, colors of truth and grace. The sanctuary was empty now, quiet, peaceful. Grace sat in a front pew. I sat beside her. I've been thinking about youth ministry, she said. My calling, whether I should still pursue it after everything. And I want to work with kids from broken families, kids whose parents divorced, kids who feel like their identity is shattered because their family fell apart. I want to tell them what you told me. Family isn't biology. It's choice. It's showing up. That's a beautiful calling, I said. I learned it from you. We sat in comfortable silence, father and daughter, not by genetics, by covenant, by choice, by love that chose truth even when it cost everything. The cross hung above the stage, silent witness to our journey, to our pain, to our healing. I thought about Rebecca. Last I'd heard, she'd taken a job at a hospital in Burlington, fresh start, new city. We'd finalized the divorce 6 months ago, clean, legal, done. I thought about Caleb. He'd moved away, somewhere out of state. His wife, Lily, had divorced him too. They'd both left Riverside, left the wreckage behind. I didn't hate them anymore, didn't wish them harm, just release them, let them go. Forgiveness didn't mean reconciliation. It meant refusing to let their betrayal define my life. You know what's weird? Grace said. I'm happier now than I was before, even though everything fell apart, because it's real now. Nothing's fake. Nothing's performance. We're just us. Me too, I admitted. The church is smaller. My reputation took a hit. I lost my marriage. But I kept you, and I kept my integrity, and somehow that feels like winning. Grace leaned her head on my shoulder. We won, Dad, both of us. We chose truth, and truth set us free. We sat there as the afternoon sun moved across the sanctuary, painting patterns on the walls, light and shadow, truth and grace, pain and healing, all of it together, real. Daniel and Grace redefined what family means, not who you're born to, but who chooses you every single day, who shows up, who tells you the truth even when it costs everything. If you've built your own chosen family, people who aren't blood but are yours anyway, I want to hear about them. Tell me in the comments. Who chose you? Who did you choose? And if this story moved you, if it made you think about truth and grace and what really makes a family, subscribe. I tell stories about impossible choices, messy grace, and people who choose love when biology fails them. Stories about broken people building beautiful things from the wreckage. I'll see you in the next one.